it's been huge. It's been great help. Like I said at the beginning, I was doing a lot about learning the actual bookkeeping process, and I find that the checklist and the system allow me to catch mistakes that I might have otherwise have missed, which is huge. And then in just the whole marketing process, I think I started using it and I signed on. I followed one of the steps and I ended up signing on 2 clients within, I think it was a week or 2 after I'd followed the steps. And then just, doing a lot of networking and so forth. Actually, it's the last time we talked, last few weeks, I managed to double my recurring revenue.
Wow.
And without these systems in place, I don't know that I feel capable to be able to keep up with the increased workload.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is the owner of Royer Accounting, which is based in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. He worked as a software developer for 13 years writing accounting software before making the switch to accounting. He then worked at KPMG in the client services branch while obtaining his CPA, CGA designation. Andrew Royer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And, I know you've been up to some really interesting things in your business and starting your business and learning and, hitting walls and getting over them, hitting more walls. But before we get into all of that, Andrew, tell us why you were interested in becoming a bookkeeper in the first place.
Well, as you mentioned in the opening, I started out as a software developer, so it wasn't my initial passion. I ended up writing accounting software, but I remember in my diploma course that I was taking for computers, at my first accounting course, I remember thinking if I wasn't going to be a software developer, I could see myself being an accountant. But what really got me decided to take the plunge into it was that when I was working at KPMG, I was working long hours. I had 2 small kids, one more on the way. And I realized that after childcare costs with the 3rd kid and after taxes, I would be taking home about $500 a month for all the work that I was putting in. And so that's when I saw a Facebook ad, somebody was asking for a bookkeeper. And so I offered to do it for $500 a month. They accepted, and I just thought that made so much more sense.
Beautiful. And how has it been since you made that decision and took on that first client?
Well, it's been a challenge. I mean, initially, the funny thing is we ended up in order to grow the business, I ended up putting the kids right back into daycare. So then money became an issue and stress to grow the business. And the other thing is it's a huge transition to go from being an employee to being an owner. And realizing just like the lack of systems, the things that you just took for granted that were in place. I mean, you had as an employee, you had such a small slice of the process that you didn't get to see the big picture, which is what I love about being an owner, is I'm involved in the client from beginning to end. But it's a struggle because it's not what you're used to. It's not what your expertise were in.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I can hear that your passion really is working with those clients. Like you like to see the end-to-end happening, but at the same time, you as a small business owner, there are so many other things to do that sometimes you think you're going for that passion, then all of a sudden, boom, it rips you back, and okay, I have to actually take care of some other stuff over here. I can't actually do what I wanted to do, and that's a challenge that every small business owner encounters. Like when you left your job, that was a big decision. You have 3 children, and I know when we first met, I think it was either having your 3rd or the 4th, I think 4th.
It was the 4th, yeah.
The 4th. So, that is a lot on your plate, and you've already sort of alluded to that, but How did you get to the stage where you sort of said, that's it, I'm actually going to take the full leap? And what were some of the things you had to do to prepare yourself for that?
Well, I've always wanted to run my own business. I think when I was 12, we did like a fair in our neighborhood where we sold popcorn and we created rides. And it's just something I've always wanted to do, but I just didn't know exactly what that business idea was. So I went down the career path and I just hated it. I think every job that I had, I just felt like I didn't fit. I wanted to, change processes. They wanted me to do my job. So it was always a struggle working for somebody else. And so when this opportunity came up, and essentially I realized by staying home and watching the kids, I was going to make the same amount of money. And then I loved it. I always wanted to do it, and then just ended up in this opportunity where I was able to do it. But then, of course, it's just been hustle to, I got to grow the business to be able to feed my kids, not lose the house, wife's on maternity leave, so.
Yeah, a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you dealing with, what do you do to deal with that stress, the weight that's on your shoulders?
Mostly I talk it out. I actually got another bookkeeper that I work closely with. We do a lot of discussing, talking about the stresses and, sharing ideas on how to fix them. I've got a mini mastermind group where we meet once a week. And then also we have the pure bookkeeping mastermind group where we meet once a month.
Yeah. Well, that's, there's something that I always come back to and have discussed as long as I've been working with small business owners is one of the enemies is doing it alone. And there's probably so many that are listening right now that are doing it alone. And so when you've been fortunate enough to actually identify that you can't do it alone, and you're using people around you that are supporting you, and just even having that ability to talk things through and sort of say, hey, this is what I'm going through, releases the pressure valve a little bit so that you can have a little bit more clarity and not be paralyzed by stress or fear or whatever else is in your way.
Absolutely. It's huge.
Now, have you always been like that? Have you always been someone that sort of says, hey, you know what? I don't quite have the solution to this. I'm going to ask for directions, or is this something that you've had to learn or create new behaviors?
The hard part for me is finding someone to listen. I've always had a hard time keeping the thoughts inside my head. I find that whenever I have a difficult problem, I always need to talk it out with somebody. So I'm thankful to have, my wife listens to me most of the time about this kind of stuff. And I've had, being able to meet some like-minded bookkeepers that are willing to share information with me, which is huge.
Beautiful. Well, that's good. I'm sure that's what's keeping you in the game, is that one thing is probably one of your superpowers. Now, you've had some challenges. I mean, you've growing your business. Let's talk a little bit about, some of the things that you had to do to overcome the challenges of starting a bookkeeping business. That very first client was off of Facebook. I'm looking for a bookkeeper. You put your hand up. You got that client. What came after that?
Well, initially, I made the mistake I think that a lot of accountants do, making the transition from accountant to bookkeeper, is that I think in the accounting world, there's a lot of thinking that bookkeeping is simple. And when I got into it, I realized it was a lot more challenging. There was a lot more to it than I originally thought. So that was a huge learning curve. So all my, the CGA training did not prepare me for jumping into bookkeeping. So that was a huge challenge. And another challenge that I had was just the time management. It took me a while to realize the difference between being busy and being effective. And so I would spend a lot of, especially email was a killer. I could have 8 hours disappear just by reading email, responding to the email. Mm-hmm. And then actually I had a period where I went 2 months without bringing in any billable revenue, and I couldn't pinpoint what I had accomplished in those 2 months. So I knew there was a problem and had to figure out how to solve it.
Wow. That is there's a couple here that are really interesting. So let's talk about the productivity for a second. What did you do to overcome it?
Well, I ended up, I had a good timing, and I ended up reading the 4-Hour Work Week. And I took a couple of the tips in there that were just huge. So one of the things that they do, he talks about in there is to only check your email twice a day. And so once I implemented that, I think my productivity I did more in the following week than I had done in the previous 2 months. And it was just, focusing on and then that, just focusing on what's important. If I only accomplish these 2 things, what are the most important things for me to do today? And I don't even remember what I was doing in those 2 months, but I know in the weeks that followed, I was just, so much more productive.
Wow. So two big things that sound really easy to implement is check your email less. You're saying two times a day, which is recommended in the 4-Hour Work Week, which is a great book. I've read it and got a lot out of it myself. So check but bottom line, check it less and set a number. There's nothing in there that we know. There's nothing in there that is that burning that needs to be addressed. But we live in this world where we start to think that it is. And it's like with my wife, we have the cell phone, right? And I cannot stand beeping phones, distractions. I mean, I have enough time focusing on one thing, let alone the distractions of a phone going beep, beep, beep all the time. So I always have my phone turned off. It's just literally, it never rings. And yet she's like, pick up your phone. You're not there. And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm trying to be more productive. But yet we're in this world where or age where we think that it should be just instant connection, whereas we go back 15, 20 years ago. I mean, if you weren't by a phone, you weren't by a phone. And so that was it. So I love that you've implemented that. Number 2 is you're saying you have 2 things that you say every day that you're going to accomplish. Is that accurate?
Yes.
How has that shaped now the productivity that you have on a daily basis?
Well, what it does is it allows, so in the day, I actually use that. I used to have a long to-do list, and it would just end up being pages long. And now what I do is I use one of those 2-inch by 2-inch stickies, and I write on there my to-do list for the day. And so what it allows me to do is focus on what is the most important and ignore everything else. So there's a lot of interesting things that come in, or somebody will ask a question about, researching something. And I find it, especially research, I get excited about it. I want to research it, but really it's not a pressing need. It doesn't affect my client. No one's paying me to do the research. I'm going to do that one day when I have some time, not today. And so it allows me to focus on the most important thing that got accomplished today. If I did those 2 things, would I go home smiling? Then I'm happy with what I did today.
Beautiful. And I'm sure your wife is getting, and your children are getting the benefit of that, because you can walk home or, punch out and be present with them. And that's the whole point. That's why you're even working during the day, which I think a lot of us forget. That's the whole point. So don't go frazzled and burnt out back to your prize at the end of the day.
Right. I think even just being the owner of my own business, I see that already. Because it's just the frustrations of being an employee. To me, it was a square peg, round hole. I just never fit. I was always frustrated, always coming home complaining. And now, even when I have a bad day, I'm still in charge, so I just feel so much better. And then to be able to accomplish what I set out to accomplish in the day is, huge. Just go home. Now, I don't go home singing every day, but we try.
Exactly. And I think you're on the right track where you're not that far away from going home singing every day. Because really, it's if that's the objective, it's just a matter of putting the things in place that enable you to do that every day. So
I didn't want to correct you what you were talking about. I'm actually in Langley.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Most of our listeners are American, so they probably
they won't care.
They won't care. No. So you're in Langley. And I don't know why we had Surrey there, but maybe your office is in Surrey. Is Royer County?
Well, it used to be. I actually moved into an office this year, so I was working at a home. My home's in Surrey.
Okay.
So I moved into an office this year.
Okay.
Which was a challenge too. I could have mentioned that because the rent, huge increase in expenses.
Yeah. So that's increased expenses, but have you seen a benefit to doing it?
Well, I mean, it's nice. I mean, especially meeting clients here. I would never meet anyone at my home.
Yeah.
So we'd always have to go to Starbucks. You don't want to have, you having finance information, like talking about their finances in Starbucks is a little awkward, not being able to find space to sit. But yeah, I mean, it was stressful because I finished a project, and so my revenue went down, and I just increased my expenses. That was stressful. But now that I've doubled my revenue, I'm back in a good place.
Yeah.
Back to where I was anyways prior to moving. So.
Yeah. And would you have done anything different looking back with the decision to get office space?
I probably would have delayed it a little bit. I might have rented like in this office like month to month instead of a 2-year lease.
Yeah.
Because then I could rent an office space when somebody was coming in to meet, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And when I met you, as I mentioned, you were, I think, literally either your baby. We met at the 7 Secrets of Growing Your Bookkeeping Business, which is a seminar that I run. And I remember you saying you're like, I think your baby was about to arrive like either that day or the next day, or it had just arrived.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, we better make this quick then. I was like worried you're going to have to jump up and run to the hospital, which is kind of fun. But tell me why, you came looking for help with your business. Why did you do that?
Well, it was a couple of reasons. Getting into it, like I said, there was the switch from the mindset from employee to owner, and just realizing that when you're working for somebody else, there's all these systems already in place. And I was realizing that I needed those systems. It's just not something I thought of. And then the daunting task of having to create all those myself, and what was that going to look like? And do I even know what a good system looks like? I haven't done all this before. And at the same time, again, the bookkeeper that I deal with, Amanda Birch, was looking into, or I think she had actually just become a pure bookkeeping licensee, and she was just raving about it. And so I was humming and hawing, is it worth it? I'm just a startup. It's a lot of money to put out. But she'd been in business for quite a while, and she was saying, she wished she had these systems right from the beginning. And so I see her as having a very successful business. I wanted to model that business, and I saw this as an opportunity to maybe, start off, learn from her, and maybe even and try and use this to, do it better. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. And that's your superpower of going out and looking at and asking and talking things through with other people you respect, your mentors, the people that your peers, and doing the research and figuring out, well, how do I get there faster? And so, yes, love Amanda. She's been on the podcast recently as well. So that's another episode I'm sure people will have listened to, so they'll be familiar with Amanda. So what has been your experience now since sort of really committing to your business, committing to Royer Accounting, and then saying, okay, I'm going to invest in my business with something like Pure Bookkeeping, which helps you standardize your processes and implement things versus try and reinvent the wheel. What has it been like for you now?
It's been huge. It's been great help. Like I said at the beginning, I was doing a lot about learning the actual bookkeeping process, and I find that the checklists in the system allow me to catch mistakes that I might have otherwise have missed, which is huge. And then in just the whole marketing process, I think I started using it, and I signed on. I followed one of the steps, and I ended up signing on 2 clients within, I think it was a week or 2 after I'd followed the steps. And then just, doing a lot of networking and so forth. Actually, it's the last time we talked, last few weeks, I managed to double my recurring revenue.
Wow.
And without these systems in place, I don't know that I feel capable to be able to keep up with the increased workload.
Wow. Well, my hat and everyone is cheering you from their car or computer or wherever they're listening to this right now, because that's awesome. And I love seeing that. Often when I wake up in the morning, I'm always asking, myself, what am I what am I up to today? What am I doing? And for a lot of my life, I did lots of things that I like to do. But what I really love, Andrew, is I love seeing small business owners like you win. Because when you're winning and doing the work that you do, now what's even cooler is that you're a bookkeeper. You help small business owners grow their business. So what's so cool about this is you're a bookkeeper. I help you grow your business and double your business, but your job is to go and help multiple businesses grow and double their business. And so every single day that I wake up, I'm helping build stronger communities because small business owners do that. I'm helping build thriving, healthy families because small businesses are the majority in our country and in North America are the businesses. Small business are what put food on the table. They're the largest employer. They're the ones that make all the investments. They are the ones that are innovating. So a small business really is the cure to so many of our world's problems. And so, here we are kind of tooting our own horn over here, but I just love that story, Andrew. And I wanted to highlight it and say, awesome, because you're doing something that is having small business owners say, hey, I want to work with that person because they're helping me grow my business. And so I love it. Love it, love it, love it. What's that experience been for you with your clients now that you have sort of more systems in place? You're bringing on new clients, you're learning, you're sort of in the process of growing your business. What has it been like for your clients? What have you heard from them? What's the feedback been to you?
Oh, I mean, it's all been good. It's nice. I've been thankful that most of the clients that I've taken on, most of them have had great bookkeepers in the past. So I kind of take it as a compliment is that they're not noticing a huge change in the service. They've been working with people that have been in the industry a lot longer, and this system has basically given me that experience to act the same way that they have. And then the clients that haven't had a great bookkeeping experience are obviously blown away by all the information that they're getting. And the biggest thing is that, they just love that I always make myself available for my clients to be able to help them with the problems because it's my passion as well that I want to see these businesses succeed. And I don't want them worried to call me because they're worried about getting a bill. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, I think I'm happy. I believe all my clients are happy. So.
Beautiful. And so with you, what would you say that your competitive advantage, if you will, or what would you say when you're talking to a new client and what's having them choose you?
Well, obviously I mentioned the pure bookkeeping system. I like pointing out to them that some of the things like the client manual that we give them so that describes their business that they own. So that as I grow, they're not going to have to re-explain themselves over and over again to my staff. But the biggest thing that I tell people, I think if I wasn't a bookkeeper, I might have gone on to teaching. I just love to educate people. And I think my clients love that as well. I love to sit down, make sure explain things in common language and make sure they understand what's going on. I want them to be empowered with their finances. And I think my clients love that. Especially I do tax returns as well. And every time I do a tax return, nobody's ever gone over the tax return with them before, and I make sure they understand it before they sign off on it.
Beautiful. It's just so simple, right? You care, and that shows up, and that's a winning formula in business. And I think it will only become more so in the future as things become more automated and there's more computing and AI and all these things that everybody's talking about, the shift in how business is being done. But it's just going to draw out that need of a human being that actually cares and can think laterally, right? And think about, hey, what's this problem? I was just literally talking to a client yesterday, and she does what's called profit planning for businesses. She's a bookkeeper, but one of her added services is profit planning. Now, it's not what you'd think around just helping them be more profitable. She actually goes and looks at how at the business and does a bit of a SWOT analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and looks at the business and tries to find areas that are impacting their profitability. And she found a company that was literally, they were at capacity, so they couldn't grow anymore with the production. And as well, their pricing had not been updated in 5 years. So there was like 25, literally, she made some changes, did some research for this business owner. Within a very short period of time, the business revenue grew by 25%, and they made some investments and increased their capacity to near unlimited capacity for growth. That's because that owner over there across the street was so busy working in the business that didn't have time to just stop and go, what can I do differently that's going to help me get where I need to go? And she provided that new set of eyes. She provided that new care for let's help you make more money. Let's help you put more money in your jeans here and have more fun. And so I just love that. And it starts with caring. You actually care. And so, Andrew, it's why I consider you one of the great bookkeepers, because a great bookkeeper is someone who cares enough and cares about becoming really great at what they do, but as well cares about the client and helping them get there. Because at the end of the day, that is what you're there for, is help them be more successful, be empowered, and to put their business in a place that will have legacy in future.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're doing great. You're hitting walls. What are you tackling right now? What's your biggest focus for your business now in the next 90 days to 180 days, Andrew?
While surviving tax season.
Absolutely.
That's a big one. I'm still just in the growth phase right now. Even though I've doubled my business, I'm probably still at maybe 30% capacity. So I'm still just focusing on growth, and then I would like to then transition at some point, hire staff, and I'm sure that's going to bring on its own set of problems. So and opportunities.
Both of them. So that's great. So right now it's growth, and your main growth moves are you're doing networking. Maybe talk a little bit about that, what you're going to do over the next 90 days to add, 90 to 180, because you're working on in the business right now because you're fulfilling on tax season and that sort of stuff, which is different for every country that people are listening to. So it's depending on when people are listening. But what are going to be your main moves to bring on new business to your business?
Well, I used to work at KPMG, so there's a lot of partners and other accountants that I work with there. So obviously they're busy right now. A lot of them are anyways. But my goal is to try and set up some meetings with them to deal with them, talk with them after tax season's over. The other thing is I've actually created a mail out that I'm planning on mailing out. I'm actually just postponing it until the end of tax season. I'll be sending that out, about 2,000 cards in this area. Yeah, and then just focusing on networking with financial planners and talking about joining a BNI. There's a BNI that's open. I won't say where because they're missing an accountant.
They're going to run out to get in there. Yeah, absolutely.
They fill up pretty quick. So
they do. The good ones do. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's it. That's my main area of networking for the next 90 days, anyways.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, you're going to crush it. I know that, and I'm going to look forward to hearing an update on that. How are all those 4 children doing?
They're good.
That's great.
They're my oldest one's a challenge. So yeah, that's been our biggest struggle. That's actually our biggest struggle right now. Business aside, that's daily emails from the teacher on what he's done wrong for today.
Oh dear. That's an interesting one. I was just having a conversation with someone. I forget. I'll have to find out the name. There was a bunch of people in this conversation, but they were talking about children of entrepreneurs in the school system.
Yeah.
Is that you're demonstrating entrepreneurial and probably have some, maybe it's genetic, I don't know, but you've passed that on to your children, and yet you talking square peg and round hole, right? It's like, right. Is it surprising that your son it's son, right?
Yeah, I have 4 sons.
Yeah, 4 sons. Holy cow. That's awesome. No. So is it surprising that they're like square peg and round hole, right? They're in a box and they're like, hey, this ain't my game, like I do it my way. So I don't know I don't have the answers, but I think it's one of the challenges that I'm sure many entrepreneurial families have.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel a lot of similarities. I was not a great student either, but I don't remember getting in trouble in kindergarten. But
he's going to be a great entrepreneur then.
Yeah, he'll be even better. There we go.
Exactly. Now, we sort of jumped over it a little bit, but you talked about your mastermind. So you have a couple of different masterminds. Talk a little bit about the mastermind with the other bookkeepers where you meet once a month. What has that been like, and what are you getting out of it?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, it's always interesting to hear what people's struggles are, be able to help each other with them. I get a lot out of just being able to throw my input in as well as ask the questions. And it's nice to be able to talk with like-minded people, as opposed to my wife tries to feign interest, but she can only do that for so long. And it's great to be able to talk to other bookkeepers that just love numbers as much as the rest of us do. Absolutely,
it's powerful to hear and see people. I was speaking with someone just the other day where they just get so much out of seeing other people try something and then go, not even though those people aren't necessarily being successful at it, like it's growth, right? There's no like, oh, just turn this dial and it's magically gets done. Growth and business, it's different for everybody and there's similarities, but you've got to go out and try things. And really for her, it's just inspiring her to take the action to try it and progress, because no growth happens inside of a comfort zone. No growth happens when there's not something being disrupted, right? It has something new, take new actions. And so just in the environment of being with others that are taking on new things is very, very powerful.
It also helps to challenge those preconceived notions when you throw out something like no one would pay X for that service, and then someone says, oh yeah, I'm charging, twice that. And just as an example of, and then you just, you're stopping your tracks and you have to rethink, what's acceptable, what's the norm, and that can have a huge transformation on your business.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen that happen to me. That has been one of my experiences, is really seeing somebody do something that I thought was difficult or hard to do or wasn't even going to work. And then it's like, oh, wait a second. It's like, I think in the last 4 years, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I have my ideas, but I don't necessarily know which one's great. And I don't necessarily have all the answers. Or in fact, I know I don't have all the answers, and I'm willing to be challenged and pushed in the direction. And that's, that again, unfortunately, some of these things take time for me anyways to get from, I guess I call it wisdom, but, for a big part of my life, maybe I thought, hey, I'm going to be a trailblazer and have the answers and to be able to do it. And so as I get older, I'm like, you know what? Let's go to the other people. Let's learn from other people. Let's let other people contribute. Let's be inspired by other people. So I love it, Andrew, that you've been doing this, and also you're leading this group and you're involved in lots of different things that are supporting you in growing your business. I just have loved this conversation. I want to say to the listener right now, again, that, whatever you're doing today, know that the fact that you're in this industry, what you're doing is making a big difference for your community, for your country. Helping small business is an honorable thing to do. So today, celebrate what you do and be thankful that you get to do something so awesome. And Andrew, that goes for you. And thank you for bringing it up in this conversation. I'm going to love to have you come back. We got to have you come back in a couple of months, share that your business is like quadrupled over when we were speaking. Now you're at full capacity. You're tearing your hair out. You got to hire staff. I can't wait to hear it.
Me too. That would be great.
Yeah, it'll be great. Lots of roadblocks, lots of barriers, lots of hurdles, but We're here to help you, and let's do it together as a community. Andrew, this has been great. Maybe, where can people, if people wanted to ask you questions or connect with you, like is Facebook, the Facebook group, The Successful Bookkeeper, the best place to connect with you, or what's the way that you like to have conversations with your community?
Well, I try and get on the Facebook group as much as I can. A lot less now. I'm trying to focus on being more effective. If somebody really wants to get a hold of me, email's probably the best bet.
Great.
That'd be Andrew at royeraccounting.ca.
Beautiful.
ROYER.
Beautiful. And we'll have the links and contact information below on this episode. So if Andrew's inspired you and you want to ask Andrew questions or connect with him in any way, you can do that just by clicking below. And Andrew, from our audience, from our community, a big thank you for devoting your time in such a very busy time of the year to be on this podcast.
All right. Thank you for your time, Michael. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Well, that wraps another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.